So we're going to talk about how to improve at Widowmaker and Overwatch 2. In this video, I have 3 tips, and let's jump right into the first one. The first tip is going to be a very obvious one. It's going to be aiming. Now we're going to break this into 2 topics. The first one we're going to talk about is aim trainers. You need to practice your aim. Now you don't have to buy Kovacs. You don't have to download aim labs and do it for an hour every single day. I'd recommend doing aim labs or Kovacs anywhere from about 15 to 20 minutes, even 10 minutes, something quick, something you can keep and something you can maintain for a long period of time. On top of aim trainers, you can also just do any aim training you like in Overwatch, anything that stimulates aiming or has the same flicking mechanism in the game. This will achieve the main idea of you will have more practice, more repetition, and then aiming and flicking will become second nature. And whenever anything goes wrong, you have training to fall back on. Now, the second part of aiming I want to talk about that is a little bit more complicated is how you aim. From almost every game I play, people have 2 aiming styles. The first one is going to be arm aiming. For those who have lower sense, they tend to just use their arm for aiming for everything. And the second aiming I saw is going to be the wrist aiming. People for this one have higher sense, and they only need to do little movements and micro movements to get where they need to go for the cursor. Now, for all my research I've done, I've seen most people say it's preference, and it's a preference to choose, but I'm going to challenge you to try something different. I want you to find a sense that's not too fast, not too slow, a perfect balance. For example, my sense in Overwatch is 4.03 with the DPI of 800. This achieves 2 things. You're going to learn to aim with your arm and with your wrist. Let me explain. Some of the best aimers in gaming, such as Shroud, ACU, even TENS, they do a mixture of both. They don't just only do their arm or only do their wrist. They have a sense that they find very suitable and balanced, and they do both. So try this out. Try aiming with your wrist and your arm and see how much of a difference it makes. Okay, diving into the second topic now is going to be positioning. Now, I'm sure you heard it constantly and constantly. You need to take high ground and high ground and high ground. But I'm going to challenge that idea a little bit. While I do think that you should always be defaulting to high ground, there's plenty of times when you should not be going to high ground. And I see it quite often where people still try to force the high ground and they end up losing their life, or they have no value to the team because they're trying to force staying on high ground. This will look like if they have somebody like Winston who's constantly diving you, or Genji. You don't have to swap off right away. A substitution, what you could do is instead is play behind your team. If you have a shield, or if you don't have a shield, just play around your team and have your team peel for you while you still have value. Widowmaker is one of the only few characters in the game, along people like Hanzo and even Sojourn, that can one-tap. And being able to one-tap somebody means you can take a whole entire player completely out of team fight and completely alter the outcome. So as long as you keep getting at least 1 pick, or even just do enough damage to make someone retreat from the team fight, Widowmaker will constantly get value for her team. So then Rapid's tip is always be adaptable. If they have a Winston or a Genji that's constantly diving you and your teammates have to go a long distance appeal for you, try to position yourself on a low ground and try to stay with your team and play closer and still get value as Widowmaker. And then by default, try to take high ground and have a better advantage to see heads. This also kind of goes in the same thing with positioning, is learning who to target first. Now, there's no one right answer to figure out who to always target first and who to always kill first, but there's still kind of like some general rules you should be following while playing Widowmaker. For when it comes to targeting exactly who to kill first, obviously I think should be avoided first. Go for the ones that are out of position, the ones that are peeking, and the one that will make the difference. The order may be something like healers first, then DPS, and then work down the tank. Or if you see a DPS out of position or he's really popping off, put the DPS down and then start focusing the tank. Mainly just try to go for the key makers, and then if there's no key makers, focus down healers. And then one of the last tips that might not be expected is Widow is not always viable. I know it's crazy, right? How to play Widowmaker, and I'm telling you not to play Widow. Let me go a little bit deeper to this. With the game being kind of faster paced and a lot of people enjoy the dive comp meta, you cannot always play Widow, who is very stationary and she has little to no mobility, especially if her grappling hook is on cooldown. So this is when it might be better to pick up someone like Hanzo, who's a mid-range sniper. He still has a sniper feeling, can one-tap, and you have way more movements for your team. Far too often there's maps that just really aren't good for her, but you're out of positioning. You really have nothing to offer to the team, and people still try to force Widow, which Widow is an amazing character, but at the end of the day, you have to have more than one character that you're able to play. There isn't too much to say about that last part. Have more than one character. I recommend Hanzo, like I said earlier, or even McCree, anybody else that can just provide more value than a Widowmaker when you're just constantly running all the time. And that sums it up. The Widowmaker is one of the most characters with the highest skill ceiling, and I think she has the ability to change a complete team fight. So hopefully these tips help you reach a new level, and happy climbing.